Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Intentional Agribusiness Leader Podcast. I've got a good one in store for you here today. I think this is going to be fun. You guys are going to enjoy learning about Brady and their company over here. But Brady Eilers, welcome to the podcast, man. Glad to have you on.
Thanks. Great to see you. Thanks for the time today.
Yes, always good to see past clients that have moved on, doing different things. Now we get to bring them back in here, have a conversation, moving up in leadership, more responsibility, all the things that come along with that. So I'm excited to dive into that and really actually see, intentional leadership from the viewpoint of somebody in the startup space. We've had a lot of biological stuff. We've had a lot of regular agronomy and different kinds of things, but actually being in the hardware space, kind of, right? And network building space. So that'll be cool. Also, young dad with 4 kids under 10. So, and being a husband along with that, right? So there's a lot of things in this package. Brady, what does it mean for you to be intentional?
Yeah, I think, one of the quotes that I really love about this is it takes as much energy to wish as it does to plan by FDR. And to me, I've always found like you're going to waste time, you're going to waste energy, you're going to waste money, you're going to waste emotion unless you're proactively allocating it to something.
Yeah.
And I've always tried to be really purposeful in that way. I've got a calendar on my wall that it's the Wait But Why calendar, if you haven't seen that before, but it's just basically does your life in boxes, and each box is a month, and in my case, and so you check one off. It just gives you a good visual of like you only have so much time, use it well. I put my kids' 16th birthdays on there, their 18th birthdays, and it's just amazing at how quickly it starts to creep up on you. And so for me, about being intentional is just really proactively planning how you want to spend your time and your money and your energy.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And easier said than done. So when and that's one of the big things that's come up over the course of doing all these interviews and talking to so many people about intentional leadership, Brady, is we all intuitively know or inherently know or have learned by watching others that we need to be better planners, and good planning leads to good things, right? I love this quote. It takes as much energy to wish as it does to plan. Yeah. Interesting, right? Yeah. So, because the brain really doesn't know the difference, and that makes sense to me. But what was the calendar called?
Wait But Why is the name of the website. Yeah.
Okay.
It's if you put it on your wall, it's going to mess with you for a little bit as you look at it and you start getting used to it. But then it transitions to being a pretty good motivator. So
got it. Yeah, that's beautiful. We're going to have to check that out and link that up because from as we're sort of carrying the banner or the flag of this intentional leadership thing, I want to provide people with more resources to be able to do so. And this is the biggest challenge. There are a lot of people I find, and even a lot of people that have been on this show that probably want to be more intentional. I amongst them. I want to be as intentional as I can. But dude, that takes time. Like you literally have to go and actually take time to think about and plan how to be intentional.
Yeah.
Then there's the execution phase. So
yeah, I agree. I've found that if I don't make the time, especially early in the morning for me, like I'm not going to spend time with myself that day, and you just got to get up and make it happen. So
amen. Talk to us about Rantizo, what you guys are doing over there, man. I think this is cool and exciting.
Yeah, so Rantizo's been around for 6 or 7 years. Started off as basically the lead supplier for drone hardware in the U.S., trying to retrofit drones to make them be able to spray pesticides. And about a year and a half ago, we had a leadership team change and transition to help move the business from a hardware reseller to a group that's creating an operator network to deploy precision ag across the United States. And so what we have found is that there's an incredible amount of robots basically that are trying to come to market, but they all are trying to create their own sales forces. They're all trying to create their own marketing team. They're all trying to create their own go-to-market. And it's just a really inefficient way to do it. It's expensive for the retailer, the grower, the companies itself. And so what we're doing is creating an independent operator network where we can match up the demand of acres that need sprayed with the supply that's typically coming directly from growers or from retailers. So right now, the most commercially feasible robot that's available is a drone, but we'll continue to add products and solutions to that so that relatively soon, you'll be able to open up your phone as an independent operator, similar to Uber, and say, hey, I want to accept a soil sampling job today, or I want to accept a spray drone operation job today. and automatically have that transaction facilitated through our Acre Connect platform. So that's what we're working on.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm a big fan of anybody who's removing friction in the environment, and so it sounds like you guys are really trying to solve for that problem. But also, I mean, I would imagine creating some opportunities maybe for people who maybe wouldn't have the capital to go start a whole company and acquire all the things and then develop a sales force and have to go acquire opportunities. You guys are helping facilitate the deals.
Yeah, exactly. So being able to work with a large retailer and they have their needs, they might not want to have a big CapEx outlay, or they're struggling with finding their own labor. So they'll come to us and say, hey, we have hundreds of thousands of acres that need sprayed, but we don't want to invest in a whole drone program. Can you help us find independent operators to deliver a consistent service? And so we can do that. And then in turn, find folks that are regional operators that want to get into the spray drone game. We can help them start that business, and it's relatively low capital upfront, especially compared to other technologies that are within agriculture. And so we're servicing the market that way. And then we also have agricultural retailers that say, look, we're a high service firm. We want to start drones. We want to start these programs. You guys have been doing this for 6 or 7 years. Help us learn from the mistakes that you made so we can get a head start on the competition in that space.
Beautiful. Very cool, man. Well, I mean, being in the startup space and just maybe a little bit different type of company than a lot of them that we've talked to on the show. How does this play into the development of your team, and especially thinking about retaining, attracting, and retaining the best talent for Rantizo? And I suppose there's a number of different levels that we could look at this from. So let's take it from your core team, as a core startup group, your W-2 and W-9 employees. What does that look like?
Yeah, so for my team, we start off every one-on-one with 3 questions. It's, are you having fun? And I always preface with, look, you're not going to have fun every week. So if you're telling me you're having fun every week, you're probably lying to me. So let's start there. But in general, you're having fun. The second is, are you learning? Because there's a tremendous amount to learn in a startup. And the third is always, do you feel like you're making an impact? Because you can be having fun, you can be learning, but if you're not producing results that you can feel, then that's going to wear out pretty quick. So those are things that we start off our conversations with to make sure that we're able to just continually manage people's expectations and emotions, and also figure out paths that they want to go on. The second is, this is obvious, I think, but sometimes skipped. You've got to pay people their value. Sometimes it just comes down to that, retaining talent. I mean, you're not just competing now on the ag tech side with agricultural technology companies. The best talent can go work at Meta or Google, and so you have to be able to realize that I'm going to pay these people what they're worth to keep them around, because they are 2, 3, 4x types of people.
Sure.
The other is just, getting rid of bad talent early. I know that's cliche, but in a startup, there's no place to hide. In a big company, you might be able to be a C or a B player and scoot along, but everybody else sees that in a startup. And so we've had to be pretty purposeful and about making sure that we're only having the best players on the team. And the last piece, especially for younger folks that are on my team, I always tell them, like, I want your analysis, but I want your recommendation. And most of the junior folks that I've worked with in the past, that's helped with the buy-in on the work that they're doing, because they'll spend a ton of time on the analysis, but by the time they get to the recommendation, they've kind of worn out of steam. But that's where you make your money. That's where you really prove your value. And that's also where they feel like they have some buy-in. If they're just going to be a data processor or a market analyst, that gets to be pretty boring pretty quickly. So actually asking them to use their brain and make a recommendation is where I found the ability to keep people engaged.
Got it. All right. A lot of good stuff there. I want to come back to those 3 questions, because I think that's really key. How often do you go back to those 3 questions? Like, what's the
Yeah, usually once a month we'll have a deeper dive into those 3 questions, and then we do weekly or bi-weekly one-on-ones, but I won't ask them that every single week.
Sure. Yep. No, I think that's good. I think those are good questions just to generally have.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people don't really push their level of reflective thinking.
Yeah.
Okay. And what I mean by this is, I was reading in a book recently. I was reading this the concept of, like, what's the difference between a vital person and a functional person, right? We all kind of get to make this choice. This is Daniel Priestley's book. which I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but Daniel Priestley talks about this concept of vital people versus functional people. And functional people are great. We need functional people to show up and do specific jobs, right? They're happy to
Yep.
show up and check the boxes and do the work. But even in some of like the more important jobs like sales roles or leadership roles, it's still possible to kind of show up like a functional person.
Sure.
To me, a functional person is probably someone who's not having fun,
Yeah.
right? Like they're not challenging themselves to learn on a consistent basis. They're not probably don't feel like they're making an impact. But a vital person, right? Like they're
Yeah.
showing up, curating the experience so that they can have fun, so that they're learning, so that they're making an impact, right? And there's two very different versions there. And I don't know that you can inspire one or the other. I think that's a personal choice to decide to do that, right? But we don't do a good job of sitting back and being reflective. Like, hey,
Yeah.
am I having fun? Was I supposed to be having fun? Should I? Or did I just normalize, right?
Yeah.
my stressful job, which is very actually unfortunately true for a lot of people.
Sure.
So
Yeah. It's definitely a good piece. And I think where we've had my biggest misses as a leader in the past is when I haven't asked those questions, then you get the out of the blue Friday phone call. I need to talk. Hey, I'm leaving. Right. And it's a lot of the
yeah,
times because you haven't had the chance to have those check-ins. Same with my marriage, same with any of my friendships, right? There hopefully isn't a bunch of surprises. If there's a ton of surprises, then we're probably not connected as we should be.
yeah. Do you ask your wife these questions?
I don't ask. I know she's making an impact. She's raising 4 kids, and it's just a
Yeah.
journey on itself. She's learning all the time, and hopefully she's having fun. I try to make sure we have a good time out of
Yeah,
it.
the impact is obvious. We can see that, and we
Yeah,
appreciate the work that she's doing. So,
yeah,
what? Okay, so from in this culture that you guys are trying to build, I'm assuming that's something that's relevant and important to you, Brady. A lot of people give it lip service, don't really do anything about it. What are you guys doing at Rantizo to create this as a great place for people to show up and thrive?
yeah. There's a couple things that we really shifted about a year ago. I would say it's focused on 2 areas. One is transparency. I know that's again a cliche word, but we are very transparent about how the business is going. We are not making everything on the scorecard green so that we can have a good all hands meeting. There's a bunch of yellow and red, and we just talk through it. We'd rather have a difficult conversation up front than everybody feeling like everything's fine and then having bad problems down the road. So we're trying to be really transparent with our team in performance as a company and as an individual. The second, in terms of building intentional culture, people want to be on a winning team. Like we can have, a kombucha bar and a dog friendly policy and pool tables in every room. But at the end of the day, like people want to win and they want to be spending their time 40, 50, 60 hours a week winning the game that they're playing. And so we're just always trying to make sure that we're communicating the wins across the team and how their individual wins are laddering up to the big wins that we're trying to achieve.
Beautiful, beautiful. What in startup culture, what do you find? I mean, what's the most challenging piece about winning?
Yeah, I think in most of the startups I've worked with, for every one win, there's 5 or 6 losses, right? And so
Mhm.
you've got to keep that kind of tenacity, and you can't get too down when you've had 4 or 5 losses in a day or that week, because most of the time the stuff that you're trying isn't going to work, and it's just keeping people motivated to say, yeah, we lost there, we made a bad decision there, but look at this thing, look at this momentum, and being able to continue to elevate that. You've got to kind of be the emotional cheerleader even on days where you're whipped, at least to your team, and having others on your executive team that you can be real with as well.
Yeah, good stuff,
Yeah.
man. What's been one of the biggest challenges? I mean, you mentioned here's for every one win, there's five maybe that don't go your way, which I can fully relate to in our business, of course. So what's been one of those big challenges for you?
I kind of took thinking through big challenges. My biggest challenge, honestly, in my career has been even outside of Rantizo. I started off my career as a high school math teacher with Teach for America in Charlotte, North Carolina. So
Okay.
yeah, Evie and I got married, and the day after we got married, moved to Charlotte, North Carolina from Michigan, and I'm a 22-year-old punk kid teaching in the roughest parts of Charlotte, North Carolina. And,
Wow.
I had basically the course that everybody had to pass before they graduated high school. And I had all the kids that took it 3 or 4 times and had never been able to pass it. So I was the person standing between them and getting out of high school typically. And so
Hmm.
that was a huge challenge. Newly married, a brand new job, brand new city, in an environment that's very different than what I was growing up in. But ended up really loving it. We had expected about 5 to 7% of the kids to pass, and at the end of the year, had about a 95% pass rate on the end of course test. And so, in terms of like biggest hurdle, biggest win for me, that still
Wow.
is probably the biggest one. So
That is a big overcome. That's a 5% expected pass
yeah,
rate to a 95% actual pass rate. So
yeah.
yeah, that's fantastic. Would you qualify that as your biggest win, or what's been another big win
Um,
that you'd
Yeah,
share?
that was a big win. That was a while ago. I was trying to think of, there's been some great wins at Rantizo, kind of trying to turn the business around and getting it reestablished. I think probably one of the big wins from my time at Rhodesian was something that we did called VIP Summit.
Mm-hmm.
Pulled this off with a partner called Terry Bryant, who's fantastic. But basically, we always want to be trying to do things different in ag. I mean, one thing that I really like about your business, Mark, is you don't have people show up into a city, just stare at a conference room wall, go out drinking that night, and then leave the next day, right? Like that is 80% of events and traveling in ag. And we looked together as a team and we said we don't want to do that. Like if we're going to fly people out to this beautiful location, let's make it worth their time.
Yep.
So we were able to pull off with about 250 people an amazing race event a couple years in a row, and kind of basically said, look, we're not going to rent a conference room. We're going to have 45 teams. We're going to mix retailers, customers together in vans, and they're going to drive across thousands of checkpoints in Utah. And we're going to make it happen. It's either going to be a terrible event and the app's going to break and the whole thing is going to be a disaster, or people are going to love it. And we had a chance to do it a couple of years. It was just an awesome outcome. And that was just a huge win, getting the whole team to do that and really trying to switch things up.
Yeah, that's I remember when you guys put that together and we were able to participate. I don't know if it was the first year or the second year
Yeah.
that you guys did it, but our team was out there helping out a little bit, and it was very very cool what you guys put together. And there's a legacy there too, because that's we were just there at the VIP summit again this year in
Oh, nice.
Minneapolis, and there one of our team members went up there to
Yeah.
do some workshops for them, and yeah, they were still going.
That's
Still
awesome.
doing a version of it. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's as good as when you guys were running it, but they're still going.
That's great. That's cool.
So yeah, that's got to be cool to hear. What who's been somebody you've looked up to over the years that's mentored you, that you've admired, that's helped
Yeah.
out?
Yeah. I think hands down, it'd be my dad. He's just an incredible leader, both inside of the business and outside. And so he's kind of always had this mantra of opportunity is rarely convenient. It's kind of what he's taught me. And as an entrepreneur, he's really jumped on that. I mean, he hasn't been the traditional guy that you start as a junior product manager and then a senior product manager and director of product management, then VP of product management, all climbing that
Mhm.
ladder. He's been in 7 or 8 different industries, vastly different, and is willing to bet on himself to go make it happen. So that's been really encouraging for me. I didn't grow up in agriculture. I knew nothing about ag. If I had dirt on my boots, it was a bad day because somebody beat me up for my Jordans and gave me boots instead. And and so he's really just coached me of like, look, take risks. You're a smart guy. You can get along with people. You'll figure it out. So whether it's in
Yep.
agriculture or medical device or teaching or consulting type stuff I've done, he's really inspired me to do that. And he's also been able to do it while raising a good family and good kids and being there for the stuff that we need. So
Beautiful.
he's been a huge advocate for me and a huge leader. I've learned a ton from a bunch of other folks. Trey Thomas from Context Network, founding partner there. He
Mm-hmm.
taught me what it means to be kind of a quiet, confident leader. It doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
to always be talking all the time, and people listen when he does talks. James Mann, Context Network, that guy can sell better than anybody I've ever met. And then Paul Beck would be the other one.
Mm-hmm.
I had a chance to work with him right out of grad school, and he really taught me how to prioritize family and also being able to be successful and have a family and a life outside of work. It's just a huge mentor and friend of mine too. So
Beautiful. We've had some pretty good people around you. That's for darn
yeah,
sure. Yeah, you're listed off a list of who's who
I've been
in the space
fortunate.
around
Yeah.
that for sure. Let's talk. Let's just do a little speed round here. Talk to us about resources, books, podcasts. What do you like? What do you recommend?
Yeah. A couple books that I really like. Million Miles in a Thousand Years by Donald Miller. He's an author that I really enjoy. He's also started his own kind of marketing story brand firm.
Hmm.
There's a couple books. I meet with a bunch of guys Thursday morning, every morning, 6 for kind of a Bible study leadership deal. So
Mm-hmm.
we've gone through a book called Parenting by David Tripp. I know this won't be for
Yep.
everybody right now, but 14 kind of gospel centered principles to be a good parent or better dad.
Good.
Other books like Ruthless Elimination of Hurry has been a great one
Mm-hmm.
by John Comer.
Yep.
And then kind of more of a business book or Same as Ever by Morgan Hauser has been a good one recently that I've loved. Um, yeah, so I'm a big audiobook guy. I try and get through about a book a week.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to keep up with some of the titles that are coming out.
Good, man. That's awesome. There's no shortage of resources, and I'm trying
Yeah,
to put together a list, like a good solid list for
yeah.
for the listeners here. We're going to run this through the Chat GPT and pull all these out of
Oh,
our
nice. Yeah,
interview transcripts at some point. And just, hey, here's after 100 interviews, here's the
yeah.
top 10 recommended books and things like that. But there's
That's
also
cool.
just some really good ones. I mean, a lot of time, probably the most recommended has been something like Good to Great or whatever. I mean, it's a great book. Or I think maybe beating that out on the show so far has been Extreme Ownership by Jocko,
Sure.
which certainly with our ag audience resonates with a lot of guys, and it's a great book. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from it. But some of these other little books, like Parenting by David Tripp, I haven't read that book, but I've heard about it, and you know, we need to see that other people are also focusing on this and struggling with this in the workspace too, because
Yeah.
yes, we all have work to do, and when we get together, we mostly talk about work goals and things that we're trying to accomplish. We're coming up with ways to help each other or do business or grow or whatever. But man, like everybody goes home.
Yeah. Right.
you know and at the end of the day, I mean, I just came off of a huge stretch of production, and then I realized, like, man, like, I mean, we're in the middle of the volleyball season, and I hardly made it to any of the games this year because they always fall on a Tuesday night, and that's the night when we're in production with our events. So
Yeah.
looking forward to it. It's a Tuesday night as we make this, so I'm looking forward to getting one of those games in tonight, hopefully.
Nice.
But anyway, that's some of these other little books topics. Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. Most people are not sitting around even just considering that they don't have to always be in a hurry,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's a great book for someone to go pick up. A lot of good stuff, man. We kind of hit on this a little bit earlier when I asked a little bit about planning, productivity. How essential planning is to the process of being a good intentional leader. But you seem like someone who kind of has it dialed on, or has a higher, or dialed in, and maybe has a higher standard for what it looks like to be, kind of keep that productivity on the level. What tips or tricks work for you to help keep that productivity level high while keeping your priorities in balance, keeping your energy up, those kind of things?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only person, but I have to get up early. If I don't take care of myself in the beginning of the day, I'm not going to take care of myself through the rest of the day, and then I'm
Yep.
going to be kind of dreading the workout at the end of the day. And there's always that excuse of the next email instead of getting onto the weights at 4:30 or 5 or 6 or whatever. So I'm usually up pretty early, trying to make sure that I'm taking care of myself with devotions, getting a workout done, so that by the time the kids are up, like I can focus in on other people for the rest of the day. I will almost always decline any meetings before like 10:30. Like I'm very much a morning person. Um, that's my productive time, and so just hammering through as much as I can before 10:30. In terms of like things that keep my energy up, I love coaching my kids' sports. Like I can act like an idiot out there. I'm not the guy yelling at the refs, but I can be the hype man for
Cool.
the Dude Buckets team. And you don't have to have the just the seriousness that you might have at work all the time. That helps me with my energy. got a core
Mm-hmm.
group of guys that we're holding each other accountable every Thursday morning. And then also, like, I'm a pretty social guy. I'm kind of the guy that's always throwing out the ad hoc, let's get the kids in the cul-de-sac and get a cooler out and watch the game. I'm not
Nice.
great at planning stuff, 7 months in advance, but I'll always send out the text to 10 people, hoping that 5 people show up. So
Right.
that's kind of how I keep my energy up. And then a lot
Cool.
of coffee because we've got 4 kids.
Coffee on draft if we can,
Yeah,
have
yeah.
it, right? That's good. What do you want to go to work on this year? What do you need to improve?
Yeah, mine is definitely patience. And it's something, I had on my list even last year. I, both professionally you want to achieve results faster and faster and faster. So just patience and that this kind of change takes time, and then also just patience and energy at home. I work from home. I have the 37-second commute, and there's days where I do that well, and there's days where I do that really poorly. And
Mm-hmm.
so to be able to just develop more patience and understanding that, look, my kids are still, even my oldest is 9, treat them like a 9-year old, not a 19-year-old. Just the ability to kind of learn that because it's something I definitely need to work on. So
Yeah, no, that's good. It's good. It's good to be humble enough to recognize that sometimes we need to allow things to catch up to us.
yeah,
And instead of always like, whatever. I mean, sometimes we just like whatever. If they're not keeping up, they're not keeping up. Right.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, that's good. What place does vulnerability take in your leadership approach?
Um, I think there's this fine balance between being vulnerable and emotionally expensive is kind of how I think of it. Like,
Mm,
we've all
yeah.
had teammates that I think confuse being vulnerable with you're just emotional all the time. And you can't have that. Like, you can't be a highly effective team if that's what's happening. And so, when I'm being vulnerable in the workplace, I'm trying to admit when I'm wrong. I'm not trying to force it and like
Yeah.
uh, say like, oh, this is the time I need to be vulnerable, right? Insert vulnerable story here. I try
Right.
to
Right.
make sure it's more generally or genuinely applicable. And I think in a startup.
Vulnerability is best non-scripted, I think.
Yeah, yeah, you can always tell pretty quickly when someone's planning on being vulnerable. Um, but I think the other piece that we're trying to do at Rantizo, and I've tried to do with other teams, is just admitting like you don't know, or these are all bad choices. But we
Mm.
have to choose the best of the bad choices. There's been times where I've been reporting up to somebody, and all I've been thinking is, what is this person thinking? Like this, these are all terrible ideas. And
Yeah.
until that leader, raises his hand or says like, look, I know these aren't great ideas, but this is what we have to work with. That builds trust to be like, all right, this person is competent, they're confident, and we're working through this together. So that's where I've found kind of vulnerability being helpful with our teams.
Mm. Yeah. I like that. I mean, it's really, I think in any type of business, but probably especially in a startup, man, we just don't have time for things to sort of be halfway working,
Yeah,
right? Or halfway good, and in some places we can get away with that, right? If
yeah,
you're a legacy co-op or you got a board or something like that, not that anybody wants to be operating on average, but it's been a long time since I've seen one go out of business,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But I see startups go out of business every day.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. There's definitely when you're having to look at a cash balance and a runway, it's just a different sense of urgency
Yep.
than some of the other struggles. So
Yep. Yep. Very, very different. Very different, man. Well, Brady, this has been a good conversation. You got a ton of good insights. I'm excited to see, what happens for you, what happens for Rantizo, and how that continues to grow. Any last thoughts before we bring it in for landing, man?
I just encourage people to like, be on the offensive is kind of the phrase that I use with my kids and my teams, and like go out and make it happen, play to win, and like I know as cliche as that sounds, it's a lot more fun in life to be creating your own chances versus waiting on people to impact the direction you're headed. So go out and play to win, and do it every day.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff, man. Love it. Thanks for being on the show.
All right. Thanks, Mark. See ya.